So now we've got our toggle switch and our slider working to control the volume. The only thing that's bothering me is that I'm using the left mouse button to shoot the ducks, but it also goes bang whenever I operate these controls. So I'm going to do something about that. And one of the first things I'm going to do is to create a panel on the user interface. So if I just go to the canvas area and create on the user interface a panel. Now, by default, the panel stretches to the whole screen, and you can see here in the panel control, the inspector, that it stretches in both directions. I don't really want this to happen, so I'm just going to click on here and hold the Alt and Shift, and we've got a number of stretch operations here. So I want a panel at the bottom here. So I'm just going to click on that, and that'll stretch it horizontally. So I should now be able to just take it down from the top, and I'll make the height exactly 40 pixels. So I can control that up here. 40 pixels. Now I should see that fits quite nicely. So I've got my controls on the neatly on that panel. I'm going to make it fully opaque there, I think. We've got the color here. If I click on that, I just turn the alpha up, and perhaps a bit grayer. Now, one of the only problems is that our volume control and the toggle switch are behind the panel. So I've just got to lift this up in the hierarchy. Just take this panel and bring it there. Now we can see our controls above that. Now essentially what I want to happen is, if the mouse cursor goes onto the panel, in other words, if it's less than 40 pixels from the bottom of the screen here, then I want to change it back into the pointer, and I want to disable the bang sound. Right, so that means I need to work on the game control. So here we are in the game control. What I'm going to do is to make another private variable of the Boolean type. I'm going to call this firing. In other words, if firing is true, then the gun goes bang. And at the beginning, I will set firing to be true. So in the start. Now, this is where we actually look at the gun, and so I need to make sure also that firing is true. So it will only play the bang sound if we're firing, as well as pressing the left mouse button. Right, so what we need to do here, so if the game is over, then nothing happens. What we're going to do is to put another condition in here. What I'm going to do is create a new vector 3. I'm going to call this mouse pos. And we can use the input system. And we've got the mouse position here. So that will give us the X, Y, and Z position of the mouse. Now I'm only really interested in the Y value of that. So if mousepos.y is less than 40 40 pixels. Then we're over the panel. But the other thing is, well, else, so if it's not over 40 pixels, then it's on the main screen. So what we need to do here is check first whether firing is active. So if firing is true, then we want to make it not true. So I'm going to say what we want to do is when the mouse is out of play. And if we're not 40 pixels or less above the bottom of the screen, then we need to make sure that we've got the mouse back in. So we check now if not firing. So in other words, if the firing has been disabled, then we need to bring it back in again. So I'll pull that mouse in. Right, what I have to do now is to define these two functions. So I think I'll put these down at the bottom. It doesn't really matter where you put these functions, as long as you define them inside the class definition. Oops, void. Okay, this is our mouse out. So in other words, the mouse is outside the playing area. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that firing equals false. So that should stop the bang going off. And I want to change the cursor back to the normal cursor. Now we've actually got a command that says this here. So this is when the game is over, it sets the cursor back to normal. So I'll just copy that. Select it and copy. Control C. And I'll put that in there. Now the other one I need to define is the mouse in, which essentially is doing the opposite. So now I'm going to set firing to be true. And I'm going to change the cursor back into the reticule, which is what happens at the beginning of the game. So this one. And I'll paste that in there. Right, let's see if the code is correct. It seems to be happy with that. Does it do the job? Let's see. Right, so there's our reticule, and it's going bang. Right, and if I move it over here, then we've got the normal cursor, and it does not go bang when I press the left mouse button, and we can control the volume or turn the sound off altogether if we wish. And then when we go back on the screen, the reticule appears again. Success.